All right, I'm gonna take a break from the Y machine videos that I'm making, and just shoot straight. Just break in and just talk regular for a second, because those videos, which I'm going to continue doing, are basically art videos. Like, it's a scripted. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to create a more like immersive experience, like tell it like a story, or like I'm bringing you through like a trail, you know? Because I'm trying to talk about something that can't be talked about, or at least I'm not capable of just explaining it verbally. So that's what art is. That's why people make art. To try to explain things that you can't explain verbally. So I do think there's a purpose, and I'm going to keep making them, even if it's hard to, might not be understandable at first. But doing it as like a piece of art, a more immersive experience, it can be like how, you know, you hear a record and you don't like it, and then you realize years later on, that it was fucking genius. Or you see movies as a kid, and then you don't realize till you're an adult 20 years later what they mean. So I'm hoping that doing it in this way, the more like art videos, like a story, that hopefully I can trigger something in your mind, in your brain, so you can see what I'm talking about. Like, you'll see it for yourself. I can't like give the concept. I don't even know how to explain it exactly. All I can do is kind of dance around it. So that's why I'm doing these videos. But I'll break in every now and again and just try and explain a little bit up to this where I'm at, in plain language, what I'm talking about. So basically, I have noticed an overarching theme in basically all medium that's regarding time, or about time. Movies about time, books, old movies, old stories, the Bible, creation myths. And then more recently, I just started kind of realizing how it also fits in with events in my own life, or ideas that I've had and things that I've seen. So I'll show what I'm talking about in a couple of these movies. I'll try to. I don't have this video real put together. I'll just try and show some screenshots and explain what I'm talking about. But basically, it's the time machine. But for the time machine, like Jules Verne, Back to the Future, or any movie with a time machine, Terminator, in the Matrix, you know, the year's wrong. They think it's 2000, but they're really in the future. He takes the pill and wakes up, and he travels through time into the future. He went from the year 2000 into this post-apocalyptic thing. So any movie about time travel, or I've seen the same thing in the Bible when it's talking about time. So the basic themes that I see that I've really nailed down to this point, that are always related to the time machine, and it's always represented by the letter Y. And the letter Y represents the word Y. And you'll see in the movies it's always represented with a Y, letter Y symbol. Like the question why creates time. It's like a time word, a time question. Like if you look at why, the word why, think about the word why in Spanish, por qué. Por means for or by, and qué means what. So when you're asking why, you're literally saying by what or for what. The why of something, the purpose of something, is always in the past or in the future. That's our only way of explaining the why of anything, is basically just referencing the causal chain. Why? For what? By what? Linear. And I'll show this in another video, but in Hebrew, this is going to be important later. In Hebrew, V and W are the same letter. There is no W. It's just V, Vav, which is 6. Double V. So like the Volkswagen logo is like VVV, like 3 6s. And we'll get more into this, but yeah. And there's no I. Y is I. So you could also call it the I machine. And it's also like, I was trying to explain in these videos, the Y is the source of ourself, needing to know why, needing to know ourselves. If we literally came into a simulation, literally turned on, put our consciousnesses consciously into a simulation, like in 3D with technology, the reason we would have done that is because we wanted to know why, the meaning of life. The reason we construct all simulations, all virtual environments, is to better understand the organic environment. Like, for instance, the way they model, quote unquote, the solar system on a computer, the movements of planets. Or the way, well, fuck that, we'll do the weather. The way they model the weather. There's way too many factors in the organic environment to actually predict the weather. So the reason you create a simulation, or the way a simulation always works, is less information. You simplify it, you reduce the information, and in that way you can know why better. You can conceive of it. It's like trying to shrink the resolution down so you can see the whole pattern. So that's why we create all simulations, to know why. That's why we take information away. That's why we simplify things. So that's also why this machine which created this simulation would be called the Y machine or the time machine, because this Y, the simplification, is the going into the simulation. That's why you create a simulation, is to know why. So I and Y are the same in Hebrew. V and W are the same in Hebrew. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. And this, our culture, our language is based on Hebrew. I can't speak, and so is Spanish and French. That's my opinion. That's what I see. It's a construct, and this is more organic. This is older. It came from this. I don't care what they say about the Phoenician alphabet and blah, 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 where it came from. If you examine the English language and the Hebrew alphabet, the way it's constructed, you can see all these correlations that can't be an accident, and how it comes the English, as well as the culture. Like the royalty with the scone stone is Jacob's pillow stone, and they secretly have this whole that they're the genetic legacy of the King David line and all this stuff, whether that's true or not. But if you look, okay, when I say V and W are the same, Y and I are the same. Look at Vav. See V, and it's the same as W, and it's 6. So like VW, the Volkswagen logo, would be VVV. Then you look down at Yod. There's no I, okay? So Y is I, number 10. And I just want you to look down lower. There's 2 other characters that have the shape of a Y, because Yod just has the shape of like a dot or an apostrophe or something. But it represents the letter Y, single point. But the 2 characters that look like the English or Phoenician letter Y are Ayin and Zadi. Okay? Now, you'll see Vav. Remember I said before, sometimes it says nail. I would like nail better here, but it works good for my analogy. You see hook, like Peter Pan, Captain Hook, like the DreamWorks fish hook, like the school event hook. And also hooked into the 6, the material realm, Vav. And what I also mean about English and Latin, all these other languages being constructed in order to create all these distortions and conjunctions of the letters and the numbers. Like 5, the Roman numeral 5 is V. But the Hebrew Vav, V, is 6. I think in some way this is done to be able to do all this word magic, word fair, spelling, spell casting. Okay, so Vav is hook, 6. Look 1 letter up, hey. The H is window, 5. I'm going to show that in the movies. With what I'm talking about with the Y machine or the time machine, a hook and a window are always going to be 2 of the elements. Then look at Yod, Y or I, Yod, hand, hand. So these are the 3 letters of the Tetragrammaton. In the Bible, the name of God is Yahweh, and it's spelled Yud-He, Vav-He. Or sometimes it's written just as without the second He, so there's no repeating letters, just as Yud-He, Vav, which is Y-H-V. So if you think about the story of Peter Pan and Captain Hook, okay, and then you think about the main elements of that movie, going to Neverland, the children, the moon, going to up into the moon, the name of God, Yud He Vav, would be hand, hook, window. Hand, hook, window. Like Captain Hook's hand is a hook. Hand, hook, window. See the ship and water. Hook, window. Nambla Entertainment. Ship, water. Water, glass. see the clock. Zooms in on the clock.
I hate Peter Pan.
Okay, so Yud Hey Vav, hand hook window. You can see how they're like depicting that, playing off that what would you call it? Algorithm, that formula they're using of Yud Hey Vav, Yahweh. Okay? Then if you look down, the two characters that look like a Y, Ayin and Tzadi, they mean eye and fishhook. And this Y, Ayin, is 60, so that's also 6. And the other Y is fishhook, 90, which is also like the 6 upside down. And even the name of it, that means eye, it looks like a Y, and it's pronounced iron. And the other Y is fishhook. So this is like they hook, like you get hooked with the evil eye. Like that's how the Matrix hooks you, by giving it your attention. Like, have you ever gotten pulled over before without making eye contact with the police first? Or someone in your car, oh, I just made eye contact. Woo, we're getting pulled over. Or like this anxiety people cause you in public why is this motherfucker eyeing me? See, eyeing. Why? Fishhook. Why is this motherfucker eyeing me? Giving me the evil eye. They hook you with the eye. Okay, and also like in Hebrew mysticism and Kabbalah, they meditate on this name of God, all facing different directions, doing different kind of yoga, postures, breathing, and doing all different permutations of the letters, like a mantra, okay? Chanting this over and over for hours and permuting it with directions and letters and all sorts of different things. But if you look at it, in English from the Hebrew, it's like the meditating on the name of God is just like why? You see, because the V is the W. You see, Vav, V and W, 6. So the VHY, because Hebrew goes from right to left. So you have this backwards idea in your head from English to Hebrew or vice versa. So Yud Hey Vav, but Vav Hey Yad, the V is a W, so it's WHY. It's literally the word why, the question why. And I think somehow Peter Pan represents like heaven or the eternal society or the organic environment outside of whatever kind of illusion we're in, illusory environment. Outside, that represents Peter Pan. And the reason I'm saying that, like the fall and losing that perfect organic environment is related to asking the question why, is like the Peter Pan analogy is like, okay, it's like when he's flying, he's learning to fly again, and as an adult, he's like, I believe it, I don't believe it, it's impossible, or some shit, and he falls again, because he stopped believing. Every time he stops believing it, he falls. That's like the Peter Pan analogy, because in heaven, outside of time, if everything's perfect, that if it's perfect, then it's like asking why is like why isn't it not perfect? Like, that's the only why. Or if everything worked out, nothing here adds up. If everything there makes sense, adds up. It's like, but why doesn't everything not add up? And you could look at it as like two different phases, like life and death, or opposite life, where one's like excess energy, one's a loss of energy. But that why isn't everything not perfect? That's like falling, like Peter Pan falling. When we asked why from our original like perfect Garden of Eden environment, why isn't everything not perfect? And we fell and went into a simulation somehow. That's just the word we're going to use, but a more limited reality, or an illusion, an illusory reality. And I'm not trying to, I don't want you to believe me here. What I'm trying to do is present a concept that you can consider for yourself. It's just a mode of perception. It's just a way of thinking about things. It's just another dimension of experience. Like, I'm a carpenter for my job. When you first learn the trade of carpentry, then you look at everything for a while in the world through this lens of carpentry. Like, you go out, every restaurant you go out to eat at, you're like, oh, this wall's crooked. Oh, this sheetrock, this crown molding looks like shit. Oh, the ceiling's fucked up. And like everything, you look at everything geometrically, and you look at everything through this mode of experience. It's like a dimension of experience, a framework for experience and thought. Or like what you learn to play music, then you see, oh wow, like I see it in the Fibonacci in the music and in the patterns of nature and plants, and wow, I see how light is kind of like the scales in music, the colors, and you see everything through that musical lens. Once you master that skill or framework, that mode of experience enough to like comfortably put that lens on and look at the world that way. And it's like that with any skill or mode of perception, an idea, a way of looking at things. Like, an engineer is going to look at everything through a physics lens, an engineering standpoint. You know what I mean. People, specialists, they see everything through that lens. But if you can develop many different modes of perception, different skills, and you see how things that shouldn't relate at all are similar, like you're like, oh, I see how music is like photography, and it's like nature, and it's kind of like the Bible. Like, that doesn't make sense, but you see what you're seeing is a pattern of reality. When you see these overarching patterns, that's what I mean about a fractal. It's almost like mastering a skill or mastering a mode of perception is like burning a hole in that area of one of the layers of illusion. And the more skills you master, it's like burning through more layers. So instead of looking at the surface illusion that never adds up, never makes sense, you can see through more and more layers, like how these spinning wheels or layers of reality line up. And it tells you something general, something about the whole reality, rather than just about photography or just about math or carpentry or music. So this whole thing with the Y machine, it's something I've seen all over. It's like a way of looking at things, and I'm just trying to give it to you as a concept and see if you find it interesting. Okay, so the main symbols or the main themes that I see, I feel like I've nailed down, are always presented as being related to the time machine or the Y machine. All these, any story dealing with time. The first one is the letter Y, representing the question why. The second one is the moon, like the DreamWorks intro, the moon. The third one is fish, fishing, fish hooks, and water. The next one is references to being underwater. Time itself, time, clock references. Going through a mirror, a window, an eyeball, or a looking glass. You see this a ton in all these movies. It's always related to a bathtub, sink, a toilet, or a pool. Some water receptacle. And I think that 555 or 555 represents the human form or the human experience.
Yes, of course. November 5th, 1955. November 5th, 1955. That was the day I invented time travel. I remember it vividly. I was standing on the edge of my toilet, hanging a clock. The porcelain was wet. I slipped, hit my head on the edge of the sink. I was standing on the edge of my toilet, hanging a clock. The porcelain was wet. I slipped, hit my head on the edge of the sink. I slipped, hit my head on the edge of the sink. And when I came to, I had a revelation, a vision, a picture in my head, a picture of this. This is what makes time travel possible.
Okay, so here he says I was standing on the edge of the toilet. It was wet. Hanging a clock. I slipped and hit my head on the sink. It's always a bathtub or a sink or a toilet or a pool. Like that movie Hot Tub Time Machine. It's always a tub or a sink or a toilet. The water. I should have put Holy Grail on this list too. The Holy Grail is always linked to it too. Holy Grail, separate receptacle. Yeah, so it's always with the toilet or the sink. He falls and hits his head, and then he says, that's when I invented this, the flux capacitor. That's what makes time travel possible, and it's a shape of a Y, you know? It looks like the letter Y. So that's in Back to the Future, the flux capacitor. And you see the sticker on it says shield eyes from light. Like, I don't know, I think it's a reference to, like I was saying, the infinite information flashlight or the machine from Contact, where it's some kind of moving kind of mirror and it's blocking the light, causing an illusion. In Contact, when they solve the transmission, and he says, oh, you found the primer. You got to think on multiple dimensions, and they bend it around. It's a Y again, just like the flux capacitor. And remember, that was a time machine also. And both machines, the gyroscope machines, are on the water. It's always on the water. And the thing she's in actually turns into liquid when the machine is running. And it's kind of like a mystery machine too. It's basically, what I think it is through different means, like technological means and secret rituals, maybe different means, we'll just say, that a very small segment of Earth has been through. You could call them, the elite or whatever, the separate people. Like in Brainstorm, but you could call it like some sort of artificial enlightenment machine. And basically, based on the experiences that they've had, like mystical experiences with some kind of technology, it also gave them some kind of insight into the nature of reality in general and how the whole world reality works. And like I said, they can't write anything good. Like, they can't write any good stories or music. It's all either stolen or it's just a true story. I think in some way, yeah, it is the way reality works. Through the reality canals, they've been shown some experience, and they're kind of just retelling it over and over again. And these are the symbols, these are the elements of the story. So when they solve it, you found the primer. You got to think on multiple dimensions. It's a letter Y. When they first receive the signal, it's I guess it's the array. What they show on the computer is a Y. These are supposed to represent the satellites, the satellite arrays in a Y. I'll do a video just on this movie, so I'm not going to go into everything about it right now. But there's a lot of fish stuff, Moon and Saturn stuff.
Orange juice. Pensacola, Florida. I have to tell you, Sparks. 1,116 miles. Pensacola, Florida. I have to tell you, Sparks. 1,116 miles. 1,116 miles. 1,116 miles.
Control watch. Got it.
Right, check them.
1,116 miles.
Through the window, you see? Always through the window. In the beginning, it goes through her eyeball.
Could we talk to the moon?
Well, it's a big enough radio. I don't see why not. I'll give you a hint. Hula hoops.
Saturn. Could we talk to Saturn?
Mm-hmm.
So, right there, they do the Moon and Saturn, the 119 or 116, which is some formula, some result of an algorithm. Yeah, but they do the 116 through the window, through the looking glass. Orange, 33. And I think Saturn is going to be an analog of something. Like, I think everything in the natural world has to represent something in our mind or in the way reality functions in a deeper level. So Saturn is going to end up being an analog of something. Like the way the sun represents the more organic environment out of a simulation, and the moon represents an illusion into a simulation, and water into water. Okay, then in the movie Stargate, where again it's like a portal, where they think they're traveling somewhere, but I'm saying it would actually just be a simulation, like a virtual environment, like going into a TV or going into a mirror. So that's what I'm saying. All the machines, they always think they're traveling somewhere through time, like in Back to the Future and Contact and Stargate and the Matrix, going somewhere real. But what I'm saying is it represents an illusion, a simulation, basically. So in Stargate, when they first turn the portal on, number one, it's water, like the liquid mercury, liquid metal type water. And when he finds the code or whatever to turn it on, what they show, the first symbol is this Y symbol. That's in Stargate. Okay, in the movie Dark City, these time controller guys who control the reality controller, the dark adepts, when it shows them operating this machine that stops time, it's this Y on the ground. This circle with the Y and this big human face up top. And they all stand on the Y. I think this represents like different institutions, religious establishments, standing on why, pretending they know why, telling people why, the meaning of life, and controlling them, these dark adepts. And like I said about the Holy Grail, while they're standing on the why, this is the why machine in this movie. The human face opens up and the clock comes out of it. They stop this time. They create more time for themselves. You could say they really slow down time, maybe not stop it. Just completely slow it down so much that they create time. And I think the Holy Grail is literally represented by this image of the two faces, where like the meaning is you can't really grasp it, you can't grab hold of it. It's the human experience. It's not in the data. Like they're looking for, science is looking for the meaning like in a bigger and bigger telescope or a bigger and bigger microscope, but it's an illusion. You'll never find it there. The meaning is in the experience, the human experience. I'll show the video real quick of the face coming out of the clock. Then in the very beginning of the movie in Dark City, it's going to be the same thing again. Through the looking glass, through the window, the dark mirror or whatever, it's the same symbol, the same reference. It's going to go through the window, and then he's going to be in a bathtub in water. And even the New Line Cinema intro in the beginning is like, it's like you're at the bottom of a well. That's how it starts out looking. And then the film goes in and you see it disappear. It's skewed and then it comes back out at a skewed angle. Out of this machine, the mirror. You'll see the mirror is the square too. It's like the pictures I was trying to draw. Bottom of the well. You're at the bottom of the well. You see, then these are like pixels. And it's like the moon between the clouds, you know? Here, this one, you can see what I'm talking about. The New Line Cinema, being like the drawings. It goes in, but you see the one is skewed. It comes back out at a different angle, and it's also like the moon. New Line Cinema. That's like the mirror. The moon, and that's your perception being skewed. So like in Inception, the way they wake them up from the dream or from a level of the dream is by kicking them so they fall into a tub. And time is distorted. Time's way longer down the levels in the dream, in the movie Inception. But from his perspective, he doesn't remember falling in the tub. From his perspective, it's just coming up out of the water. That's the first thing he remembers, is coming up out of the water. And that represents coming out of the simulation, out of the dream, is coming up out of the water. That's what I think, I guess, baptism like would represent. Coming into reality, like God, organic, higher up, a higher dimension, more real, would represent God. And so baptism, I wouldn't be about going in the water. You just have to put them in the water to bring them out of the water. That's what it's really about, is the coming up out of the water is baptism. And the mirror liquid, again, in the Matrix, and him going down into another simulation, not into reality, like I said in the other video. And it's the same thing again, like through the window, through the looking glass, Alice in Wonderland, like in all the other movies, where he's looking into the mirror in that scene, and he goes into the mirror too. It represents the same thing when he touches it and his hand goes into it. He goes into the mirror, into the looking glass. So, yeah, those relating to time, the time machine, and this possible tech or technique or event or whatever inspired all this, and probably relates to the overall fractal, the overall nature of reality. The main symbols tied in with this are the letter Y, and Y is also I, the question why, the moon, fish, fishing, fish hooks in water, references to being underwater, references to time, clocks, going through a mirror, window, an eye, or a looking glass, being inside an eye, a bathtub, a sink, a toilet, or a pool. Like, remember the circling the drain video I did? Entropy, the spiral. Like, that's the symbol of the movie Dark City, is the spiral. So a bathtub, sink, toilet, or pool. And time and a new reality being depicted as a liquid. Either like mercury, water, or liquid metal. The last clip I'll show you is the DreamWorks intro. All these studio intros have significance too. So you see, it's like it's got all the elements. In the beginning, you think it's the moon, but it's not. You see, it's the mirror. And the water as the mirror. Then you have the fish hook, hits the water, and then now you know it's a reflection. He's fishing for the fish in the water, and that's DreamWorks. And to make it even funnier, remember who this is. This is Walter Parks. Walter Parks is DreamWorks, Steven Spielberg, and Amblin Entertainment. All right, I hope that cleared something up a little bit. I don't know. Trying my best. Trying my best.
If you were to have something written as your epitaph,
Here lies David St. Albans. And why not?
you feel that sums up your
No, it's the
life?
first thing I could think of.
Oh, I
Really, it
see.
doesn't sum up anything, really.
Yeah.
I'm a real fish nut. I really like fish.
What kind of